Geocachomaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Welcome back to GeoGearHeads. This is episode 181, and we're going to be talking about OpenStreetMaps for the second time. And, you know, Chris, I can't remember when the last time was that we talked about OpenStreetMaps. It's been that long that even though I looked it up before the show, I've already forgotten when that was.
Well, it has been a long time, but, you know, it's a topic that we keep getting questions about, so we're going to cover it again. And who better to cover this topic than our good friend, Dave DeBearmaker.
Hello, everybody. How you guys doing?
We are good, thank you. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm happy to be here.
Well, Dave, as we do on this show, we ask the guest to tell us who the winner was for the previous question that we had asked. Now, we had asked what the name of zero latitude. No, we asked the name of zero longitude. We may ask zero latitude this week, but hold your horses. What is the name of zero longitude? And I'm happy to say that none of our brilliant and, frankly, you know, good-looking listeners answered incorrectly. 100% of the entries this week were correct on the first try. So, Dave, do you know what that is?
No, it probably helped that this wasn't the first time you guys asked this question about the Primordium. Apparently the last time was on episode 131, just 50 short little weeks ago.
Well, that's almost a year.
Almost.
But, you know, I blame it on Daryl because he likes to make easy questions. I personally would have chose more difficult questions, like, you know, what's the 161st degree longitude?
Yeah, I have no idea what that is, but I do like giving stuff away. That's why I like easy questions. Well, I'm sure it does in some dimension.
Ooh.
See, that's a question, is what dimension, maybe? In which dimension is there a 166? In any case, we did have a couple of people that actually noticed that we'd asked this one before, but I think only one of them actually had gone back to figure out which one it was.
That was Dan of Team Pugach, wasn't it?
No, he is this week's winner. So that would have been pretty cool, but congrats Team Pugach for being drawn as this week's winner. But we do have a special honorable mention to Jersey Eric for going back to our back catalog to figure out which show he had heard that question on last.
And speaking of prior shows, before we get into our topic tonight of OpenStreetMaps, we have a voicemail from another listener who seems to be digging into our back catalog. And guys, you can always find all the episodes at GeoGearHeads.com.
Good morning, GeoGearHeads. This is Greg with those_guys. Just wanted to start out by thanking you for such great podcasts. I work graveyard shift, and I download all of your podcasts before I go to work, so to help me keep from dying of boredom poisoning. The reason I was sending this was I listened to your podcast about geocaching solo, and I just wanted to bring up something maybe you could use in a future podcast. I'm diabetic, and so when I go out on some of the excursions, I start out thinking, oh, this will be a quick run to get this geocache. I find out hours later that it turned out to be a little bit longer than I expected. Now, luckily, I haven't had any issues with blood sugar levels during those trips, but it was something that I kept in mind. Well, one of the things that I took to doing was I found this geocaching little placard that you can print offline, laminate, and hang it on your mirror when you go out geocaching. So what I would do is I printed it out, but I put on one side my name, my contact number, but I also put my information from my road ID. Now, if you're not familiar with Road ID, they make all kinds of identification bracelets and dog tags and necklaces, things of that nature, that if for some reason you can't speak for yourself, the Road ID does that for you. So what I did was I put on the information, the website, and the phone number for Road ID, as well as my serial number and PIN number on that placard. And then I also, on the back side, using a dry erase marker, I would put the geocache I'm in search of, or if I'm doing a series, I'll put the very last geocache that I'm planning on getting to. So if something were to happen, someone sees my car and I'm not there after a long period of time, they can use that information, find my contact or my emergency contact through my Road ID information, and also gives them a direction to start looking for me. And hopefully between my car and that last geocache, they find me. So it was just something that I wanted to bring to your attention, and hopefully might be something that could help other fellow geocachers. Yes, I understand that it's not real time, but not a bad thing to have, especially if you're away from your car for a long period of time. Well, again, thank you for having a great podcast, and I'm looking forward to listening to more.
That was really good information. I had not heard of my Road ID prior to this. Had you, Daryl?
No, I don't think I had either. But that's probably a topic we should also revisit again, is the caching solo, because the last one we did was our first caching solo show, and that was episode 79. So he was really digging back there to find that one.
Well, if he's as bored as he says, he may have to go back and listen to our entire series of shows. And caching solo is not about red disposable cups. I just want to throw that right out there.
That's an excellent point.
Is it about caching with a Wookiee?
Ooh, you should never go solo. Take a Wookiee with you.
Let the Wookiee win.
Yeah, and cache or hand found the cache first.
Hand sign first.
Hand sign first. There we go.
I see the T-shirts and bumper stickers coming for this.
Oh, only if we could script this ahead of time. Think of the incredible show we could have. Hey, in the Q&A, Dano of Team Pugach, our week's winner, is taunting me. I want to say...
Is there anything better to do than to taunt one of the hosts?
Not really, but he won 2 state flags, and he took the 2 states that I have been in this very week, Texas and Washington. I was really hoping, Daryl, nobody would claim Washington, and you could just send it my way when all the contests were over and nobody had claimed it, and I would just take it by default. But Dano of Team Pugash, he thwarted me.
Well, he also says that you always should let the Wookiee find it first.
That's true. Yeah, because if they don't find it first, they tear off limbs.
They have the tendency to get upset. So let's get into OpenStreetMaps, otherwise known as OSM. And Dave, you've been studying up on this a little bit, certainly more than the rest of us on this show. So tell us, first off, what is OpenStreetMaps?
Well, OpenStreetMaps is an effort that was started roughly 10 years ago in the UK, and it's since become a global thing. And the idea of OpenStreetMaps is that it's a community-generated set of maps. And also they provided for free for the public at large to use. So all the stuff that's in the maps are provided by people. It's not a corporation that's providing these maps. It's you and me and whoever else is interested in cartography, and they're kept up to date constantly, edited constantly, and then the idea being is that we always have a fresh set of free maps that we can use for whatever things that we need it used for.
Yeah, and this is open source, so anyone can pretty much use it for anything. There's a lot of the commercial products that have been based around OpenStreetMaps and then edited or whatever, but it is driven by funding from the community, and they are having a campaign going right now. You can head over to OpenStreetMaps.org and find the info on it, and of course we'll put in the show notes. So it's actually it's donate.openstreetmap.org if you actually want to donate. But they're looking to improve some of their hardware, and the hardware isn't cheap. I don't know how they managed to keep this going without any real revenue so far, but they're looking for, I think they said something like 50 or 60,000 pounds, I think it was pounds, to buy all this hardware and upgrade the hardware. So, if you like the maps, like I love putting them on my GPS, maybe it's worth heading over there and donating a couple of bucks.
Yeah, these some of these maps are also things that Groundspeak uses. Groundspeak has several options for mapping, and one of them is the OpenStreetMaps. So by contributing, you also can be helping out your own geocaching experience on geocaching.com as well.
Absolutely, and a lot of the apps will use OpenStreetMaps as their offline maps too. So not just geocaching, but in general. And I have kind of a soft spot in my heart for OpenStreetMaps because way back when Google did their whole thing with trying to monetize the Maps API, and so many places jumped over to OpenStreetMaps because it's free. That's when I first really took another look at it, and they have things like trails, and you don't get that. Well, now I think there's some of that in Maps for Google. Am I correct?
It does support trails, but they're not as extensive. Google, you can also actually submit edits to their maps as well as users, but I don't think it's quite. They haven't. I don't think quite built the community of people contributing data to it, so they're not as extensive as what OpenStreetMaps tends to be.
Well, I think they have that on pause due to some nasty hacking too.
Yeah. They have that, and the other thing is Google doesn't allow you to download their maps and use it on your GPS and stuff.
Right.
So it makes it well. It's fantastic for planning caches while you're at your desktop, or if you're using your smartphone in the field. It's not great for offline caching, unfortunately.
Well, and we should also note, because we are talking so much about the Google product here, that OpenStreetMaps is just the streets. It's not, streets, paths, that kind of stuff. It's that vector-based information. It's not the satellite imagery that so many people think of whenever you say Google Maps. It's the street-only view that you'd get from Google Maps.
Right, but not Street View.
No. Sorry.
Right. Just the map of the street.
Right, the street mode from the view, yes.
The what do they call that on Google Maps? Just the map view, not the satellite
No, it's
view?
street. Or at least it used to be just street. Now you got me wondering.
Let's see here.
We all have to go look.
Yeah,
They just call it map.
Map.
Oh, they do call it map now, okay.
At least that's what the little thingy in the corner is when I switch between Earth and map.
There you go, Earth and map. It's not satellite anymore. You're right.
Yeah, it's your basic map layer that's just lines and and drawings. It's nothing taken with a camera. It's taken by
Right. It's
lines and blobs.
It's the nice lightweight routable option.
Mm-hmm.
You can't route on the satellite view. You have to use the street view to route and then do the overlays. And that's my thing with totally changing subjects with Google Maps is I absolutely love the hybrid mode, and that's one of the reasons why I won't switch off of Google Maps. Is that hybrid mode is absolutely amazing when I'm out caching.
Yes, I like it too. Just this last trip I took, I was using maps to guide me everywhere. I was in a state I didn't know well, and I'm telling you, having that hybrid view of being able to see not only the streets and the names of the streets, but the terrain underneath it was incredibly useful.
Well, let's get back to OpenStreetMaps, and we've already mentioned that you can get the OpenStreetMaps for your GPSRs. Garmin, it's real easy because you can actually go to some websites that have the tiles prepared for you, and you can just download those. But Dave, I think you actually looked into this a little bit more to find out maybe what some of those better ones are, and a little bit more about how that actually works.
Yeah, for downloading the actual maps off OpenStreetMaps, for the Garmin's, the site I tend to go to is garmin.openstreetmap.nl. and it's a really robust site that they have a lot of pre-canned maps ready to go. They're broken down by all your major geographic centers. In North America, they have one for every province in Canada and every state in the U.S. just ready to go. You just click on it and you can download it. Or they also have the bigger map of the whole world, and it's broken up into chunks. And if you want to, you can customize which chunks you want up to a certain size, which I think I was able to download half of the U.S. in one chunk, and then they will generate you a custom map based on that. And the maps actually come in 4 different formats. One is it's for Windows. It's the data that Garmin Basecamp needs to generate its maps for Windows, and another similar one for Mac. There's also what they call the generic tiles, which they advertise for Linux users, and I never use that. The one that comes really handy, though, is that's a file format called OSM generic gmapsup.zip when you download it. And what that is that's the ready-to-go Garmin formatted maps. So if you download it, you can just take that download, unzip it. Inside is a file called gmapsup.img. And if you just copy that to the Garmin folder on your GPS and reboot your GPS, and the maps will just magically be there. And all of the one thing I find annoying about the site is that all the file names are the same name. Like if you download Pennsylvania, the file names are going to be the same as North Carolina, same as Washington, same as Michigan. So typically what I do is I rename the file. So if I download North Carolina, I'll change it to northcarolina.img and copy that over. And if you do that, you can copy over multiple maps at the same time. I don't know what the exact limit is, but it seems to be about 10 maps that get supported before the UI gets a bit confused as to which map it should display.
Well, I think that's in part the size that can be a limit there. And it's also partially the GPS that's an issue there, because I have played with that on some of the older units, and they barely handle 1.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's file size, and the reason why I say that is for my particular map setup, I have downloaded 3 large files. One was the western side of the U.S. I think I divided it roughly along the Mississippi, so that I have a file that's all the western U.S., all the eastern U.S., and all of Canada, at least all the inhabited parts of Canada. And that's 3 files, and it takes up roughly 22 gig of space.
Wow.
So I have it on an external SD card. And it handles that just fine. But if I downloaded like 11 states and stuck it on there, it would get confused as to which ones it displays. And it's really just a UI thing, because the data will be there, and if you move it around, you can get it to work, but it's just not intuitive to use. So my rule of thumb is keep it less than 10 map files on the device.
Well, and someone that I had talked with about OSM maps a long time ago said the way they handled theirs is, I think they had an Oregon 200 that really, after about 4 files, started to flake out on them. So what they had done was simply rename it to some garbage name so that the unit couldn't find it, and then they would just plug it in and change the name real quick, and that way they didn't have to transfer it. So it was a quick, easy way for it to be on the device, but because they changed, I think they just changed the extension, then it wouldn't recognize it as a compatible file, and it just ignored it.
It's a good trick.
Mm-hmm. On my Oregon, I would have to do the same thing, or I would take multiple cards with me.
Which is another big thing, especially the folks with the Colorados. The cards were really expensive back then, and there were a lot of cards that weren't, the bigger cards that weren't actually compatible with those units. So you pretty much had to take separate cards if you wanted the whole country.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. is pretty big.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, the older Garmin units, like the 60 CSX, had a file limit size. Like I think it was like 4 gig was the maximum you could have a map. So if you have the older units, you might be limited by file size. But if you have the new ones, I have an eTrex 30, it seems to handle really large files. So
well, I think even with the newer units, most of those are using the FAT file system still. So there's a file system limit of 4 gigs per file.
Mm-hmm.
So that is
Well,
a hard limit. Or is it 2 gigs per file with FAT,
it's
actually?
2 gigs on FAT. If FAT
Yeah,
32,
FAT
is it
32.
4
FAT
or
30.
8? I can't recall. But yeah, that is having the same issue. But those older Garmin's also had a card size limitation. They couldn't read
Yep.
past. Was it 8 gig?
It depends on the unit. I remember one of the E-Trex units, I think it was a Vista that I had, would only
Oh.
take a 4 gig card, but like the next version after that would take a 16, and I want to say that the Magellan that I had was limited to 8 gigs.
I know my Oregon will handle 32 gig. I don't
Right.
think it.
And that's
I
yeah,
think
that's
it
the
will
limit for
have
most.
64, but it has issues with it.
Well, yeah, and a lot of that is the SD standard that they were using at the time was limited to the 32 gigs.
Right.
So the newer units will handle bigger cards and bigger files all the way around, which might be a reason that you want to upgrade to one of those newer units.
There you go.
But they also do have maps for apps to use, and this is a big thing. Especially the CGO users that I work with are really excited to be able to do this because they can load in all those maps. We talked about this with Jessie Shorty-Nets when we did the patron show and went over to Canada. She had taken a whole bunch of the maps for Canada, loaded them. Well, actually, it was just one map tile, I think, but loaded them in. And that way she could turn off all cell services and she still had all of her data and could pretty much cache, as you would normally. You just didn't get the live updates because, she didn't use the data because data costs her lots of money.
Right, and those maps, I use Locust Pro, but the same maps are used for CGO. And those are vector maps. And to get those, I tend to go to androidmaps.co.uk. There were other sites that I went to, but they seem to have disappeared. But that's the one I found works well now. And those files, just to give people an idea, my state of North Carolina, the vector map is 130 meg. So that easily fits on any smartphone, and you don't even really notice it. It's smaller than like caching a CD worth of MP3s on your phone. And the Android maps at co.uk seems to have the world that I can tell. It has pretty much everywhere that you can go. It has maps for, and they're free. They ask for donations, but they work really well. You just unzip them and drop them in the right folder. And at least on Locust Pro, I've not used CGO. I assume it's as easy. You just drop them in a location on your phone drive, and magic happens. And they're the same drawn maps. They're not the satellite stuff, but they'll get you where you need to go.
Right, and you'll have to take a look at each individual app that does support the offline caching because some of them have their own internal engines to do it. Some of them will ask you to do it externally. Some of them you have to go kind of backdooring it through a computer to get them in. So take a look at the individual app that you use, see how you do it for that particular one. But another thing that we should probably note with some of these engines, not all of them, but many of them will give you the option to actually turn on and off different layers. So you might or might not have the option for the trails, for instance. And I love those, but not all of these builds will have those because they're assuming you're going to put them on a GPS for routing, not for hiking. So keep an eye on some of those kind of things if you want the trails or if you want parks. I think you can even turn off parks on some of them. But they are all different layers, so you get to build what you want on your maps, and the less that's on there, the less space it takes. But for me, as a cacher, I really want those trails.
Right.
Yeah, the trails are the thing.
You have to make sure they're not routable trails because there's no way a Prius is going to go down some of these trails.
Ooh, but it would be fun to try.
It would. Four-wheel drive
how about
Prius.
a Kia Soul? I know someone with a Kia Soul who might actually try it.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. All right, so Dave, rescue us from this train of thought. What does it take to actually make some edits? Because I have like a street over here that just recently changed names, and it also changed the shape of the street a little bit. So what would I need to do to make those corrections?
Actually, I've never looked into streets, but it should be all the same thing as I played around the trails mostly. But typically, if you just go to OpenStreetMap.org, I think it's .org. Let me confirm that. If not, it's probably .com. OpenStreetMap.org. And if you log in with an account, it's a free account. There's a button right at the top left corner called Edit. And when you click on Edit, it will allow you to start manipulating the map any way that you see fit. So it's very important that you be careful what you do because there's no checks and balances. Once you make an edit, it becomes live on the map instantaneously. Like within seconds, it becomes live. So you want to make sure that the changes you make are the changes that are actually in reality. Typically what I do, if we talk about trails, for example, the first thing you need to know when you're doing trails is where does the trail go? Like where's the actual trail go in the ground? And the best way to do that is to simply walk the trail and bring a GPS with you and turn on your track log and then just walk the trail. And then when you're done, you can save the track log and then upload it to OpenStreetMaps. If you're looking at the OpenStreetMap interface, there is a button on the top right-hand corner called GPS Traces. And if you go into there, you can upload the track logs from your GPS. They have to be in GPX format. And if they're in a different format, they have a couple, and if you look in the help, they have a couple links of converters that you can use. I've successfully converted MyTracks, the Google Android app that tracks where you've been, and that outputs in KML. And I've used GPSvisualizer.com to convert the KML into GPX, and then I could upload that to OpenStreetMaps. So if you go to GPS Traces, upload your GPX file, give it a name, and then like a common name, like this is the Green Trail, or this is the trail in some location. So it's basically a name for you, so you know which GPX file you uploaded. When you click on upload, it'll upload the file, and then it'll take a while to process. It does it offline, so it says it takes up to 30 minutes to process it. When it's done, it'll send you an email. So once you get the email, you go back in your GPS Traces, and there'll be 3 links, and one of them is Map, one of them is Edit. If you click on Edit, it will bring you to the OpenStreetMap, and will overlay your track log on the map. So you can see where your track log is in reality with respect to the map. Then from there, there's a tool for drawing a line. And all I do is I just draw the line over top of my route that I took, making sure it connects to any road or trail or whatever that it may connect to. And so if you just draw that, that becomes the actual trail that will eventually appear in your map. So once you have the line drawn, on the left-hand side there'll be a bunch of data that you can type in. The name of the trail, what type of trail it is, for all sorts of things like is it a dirt trail, is it a paved trail, types of uses, like is it just for hiking, is it for biking, are horses allowed, can cars drive on it, all those types of things. And then once you have all that set up, click on the Save button, and 5-10 minutes later, if you go back to the live map, you'll see your edits. It's really quite amazingly quick.
Very impressive. But we should note probably that even though it shows up on those live maps in 5 or 10 minutes, it's probably going to take you a few days before you can download it into your GPSR off of one of those other services.
Yeah, days or weeks, perhaps months, depending. It all depends on how quickly the other sites update, and I don't really have information on exactly how quickly they update.
It's on a site-by-site basis, too.
It is. On Garmin.OpenStreetMaps.nl, I tried downloading the maps from my area a week after I did an edit for a local trail, and it was not there yet. But I downloaded it last night, and it was. So it's somewhere between a week and a month is roughly when that will update your trails, so you can download it for GPS.
So is there some vetting process in there?
As far as I can tell, no, which is kind of shocking. I think it's depending on the community stuff. I'm not sure if I didn't see anything about, user ratings or anything like that. I think it's just you make your edit, and if it's wrong, somebody else will come along and correct you. It's kind of a very trusting system.
Yeah, and they've had issues before where entire cities have gotten messed up because someone went and did something they shouldn't have done. So there are a number of situations where the OpenStreetMaps, and this is one of the reasons why you have that delay on so many of these sites. They want to make sure that there isn't anything that's gone wrong, so they'll save those for, sometimes a week in the case of one of them, to see if there's any kerfuffle over some edits that were made, and if not, then they build it into the map, because you don't necessarily need up-to-the-minute street maps if you're just looking to put it onto your routing, card nav kind of system.
Yeah, streets don't get built that quickly.
No.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to point out, though, is that we as geocachers, like the global community of geocachers, go on an awful lot of trails. And I'm pretty sure, and this is just me speculating, that if every cache owner out there just mapped the trail it took to get from parking to their cache, we would probably have most of the trails in the world mapped in really, really short order. And that would make life awesome for everybody. So
I will put out a plea, though. Don't put the off-trail tracks up there.
yes.
That would be bad.
Yeah, one of the caveats about taking your the trail route when you're actually recording it on whatever device you're recording your trail route on is that it will track every single place you go. So if you stop off for lunch halfway down a trail, it'll park you there. When you go off trail and do the drunken bee dance in the woods to try to find the ammo can, all that track will be there as well. So one thing I would recommend is if you're grabbing data and you know you're going to be using that track log for drawing the trail on a map, is wherever you leave the trail, make sure you go back to that same spot when you return back to the trail. That way you have a pretty clear line of what part is I was off trail geocaching and what part was you being on the trail walking or riding or whatever.
And in most cases, there are editors that will help you take care of that even before you upload it, if you care to go through that. And we talked about that kind of stuff with Northern Penguin on the show about the Ontario trail maps.
Yeah, and the nice thing is if you know which part is which, you can just upload the track log to OpenStreetMap and just don't draw your line over the off-trail stuff, and you'll be fine. It should be pretty slick as long as you kind of pay attention to where that is.
Well, depending on what you're using to create your tracks, as I recall, even most of the Garmin's will have the option to pause your track recording. So if you are going off trail, you could, and you're being conscious about it, you could go and pause it temporarily and do that. Or if nothing else, you can save your existing track log and create a new one, and then delete that one in between and create a new one when you go back, and you just have a whole bunch of track logs that you'd have to upload.
Exactly. Another trick I use, actually more for the Google side of things than the OpenStreetMap side of things, is I switched over to satellite view and try to look for landmarks. For example, there's a greenway system through town that was not mapped, and if you look on the satellite view, which OpenStreetMap doesn't have, so this is a big tangent, but you could actually see the trail on the satellite view, but it just wasn't on the actual, this is a trail map. So I was able to draw my line on top of the actual satellite line. So hopefully accuracy would be improved, or at least consistent between the two views.
Sure, and there's all kinds of apps that will help you create these tracks if you want to do that. But hopefully most of us have I should say most of us do have a Garmin GPS who have the actual handheld outdoor devices. So that's what most of us are probably going to use. And the locations of those track managers is simply on the Garmin Drive. Am I correct?
I'm not sure exactly what you're asking.
In the unit, it's just
right.
like Garmin / something,
Yeah. Yeah. On the device itself, the icon is actually just called Track Manager, and I highly recommend that. Once you're done, like if you're going to walk a trail from point A to point B and you want to capture that log to make a map, when you start at point A, create a new trail. When you get to the end, go in and give that track log a good name. Otherwise, it just saves it by a date stamp, which is not that intuitive. So give it a good name, name of the trail or whatever. And then when you get back to your computer and plug in your GPS, all of the files, at least on my eTrex 30, they're all in the /Garmin/GPX/archive folder, and they'll be all listed there. And just find the one that's the name that you gave it .gpx, and that's the track log that you need. You can just copy that over to your drive, or just upload it directly from there to OpenStreetMap or whatever you wish to do.
Yeah, and on some of those older units like the 60 CSX, they didn't have the file system that you could really get at, so I think you have to go through Basecamp, and
Yep.
for all of them, you should be able to go through Basecamp to get that. For all the Garmin units, you should be able to go through Basecamp to get your track files.
Right. If you don't have a Garmin, I've used MyTracks, which is a Google app on Android. I don't know what the equivalent ones are, but on the MyTracks ones will actually save it to your Google Drive. So it should just be available right there. It's a KML file, so you have to run it through a converter. But that was a quick and painless process. But that does make it really easy if if you're caching with an Android cell phone, to make those track logs and then have them ready for importing into OpenStreetMaps.
Speaking of Android phones, we actually got Andy's tangent telling us that GC Droid will also use the OSM maps and has a really nice in-app download function. No need to transfer to the phone manually. Now we're talking the maps, not the track files. But yeah, so if you're on GC Droid, which we had him on the show a few months back, really great app, and I know of some cool functions that many of us are going to want, and I might be switching to GC Droid very shortly, because I just have not been having good luck with cache sense lately.
And why is that, Daryl? What issues are you having?
Mostly with the Munsies, but I'm having very, very poor luck with the Munsies, actually. So I had to just turn it off entirely.
You do have to be a premium Munsie member for that to work.
Yes, you do. And I am a premium member, but I had totally forgotten that that was a premium-only feature.
That is a premium-only feature, yeah. Have that access to the API there.
But the other thing is that the developer is right here in town, so if something goes wrong, I get to yell at him.
You get to knock on
there's a
his door and
problem
say,
in
hey,
the
fix
GC
this, will
Droid.
you?
Yeah. No FTF for you. I'm taking away your FTF from my new cache.
Nice.
Meanwhile, also from the live Q&A, Wet Coaster says that he'll have to watch the entire show. He's not only interested in OpenStreetMaps, but the bear is his third favorite bearded Canadian.
Makes me wonder who the first two are.
Yeah, really. How many bearded... Well, there are a lot of bearded Canadians.
I'm jealous.
But, yeah.
So, yeah, Wet Coaster, you'll have to let us know who 1 and 2 are.
You have beard envy, don't you?
I do.
Well, also earlier in the Q&A, we had Dano of Team Pugach, and we talked about this. He may be guilty of taking his hybrid Honda Civic down trails that he shouldn't have. And, it's not that we don't have guests from time to time that prefer to drive on the walking trails. Scott Burks. I'm just saying, you never know. When you got to go for that cash and you're in a hurry, you're going to do whatever you have to do.
Hey, FTF's FTF. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I will admit that I've had several GPSRs try to take me down trails that are not actual driving trails.
Okay.
And don't forget, all the people, especially it seems like New York and New Jersey have this problem more than others. There's a disproportional number of reports out of those states where the people are told to drive down the train tracks.
That's interesting. Why?
It is a more direct route.
Yeah. I haven't actually seen the street sign that says, yes, if your GPS is taking you here, it's wrong. Don't go down this road.
I know. I keep waiting for those. Well, and I had, I think it was the DeLorme maps were trying to tell me that I really needed to go down this logging road.
Ooh.
And I was just looking at it going, there's no way I'm going down that. I know I have four-wheel drive, but there's no way I'm going down that.
But, Daryl, it's the shortest path.
Yeah.
I don't think it was even the shortest path looking at the satellite view, trust me. Well, White Coasters did tell us who it is. And his number one favorite is Wet Coaster. His second favorite is Russell Martin.
Yes, he's a baseball player, so I guess I can't compete with the baseball player.
Oh, nice. Okay, and now on to our New Jersey guidance issues. Team Dano, or Team Pugatch, rather. In New Jersey, he had a TomTom tell him to drive down an airport runway.
Don't do that.
I see it all the time in Top Gear. It has to be true.
Yeah.
Ooh, maybe that's the answer, though, is that you can do such things if you have a television crew present.
Oh, okay.
You can do anything if you have a television crew present.
Yeah, that's pretty much true. And
Yeah.
It's sad, but true.
Yeah, I've had my Garmin try to take me down roads that were clearly planned because they were like parts of subdivisions, but they never actually put the road through, which is very annoying.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those where they'll actually kind of show up on the street maps, but when you get there, there's no sign of an actual road.
When I was on my trip, the navigation did a decent job. However, there was a lot of road construction. So every time it told me, hey, take an exit here, there's no exit there. There never was an exit there. I don't know if it was road construction or planning, but yeah, I eventually got to where I was going, but you really had to pay attention. You couldn't just put it on autopilot and follow navigation.
Oh, lovely. All right, well, we are going to probably keep talking about all of these things for a while rather than OpenStreetMaps. So, Dave, before we sign off and go talk amongst ourselves, any last-minute thoughts about OpenStreetMaps that we should relay?
Other than the fact that I think it'd be really cool if we as geocachers could use the power of the exploration that we've done to create one of the best trail map systems ever. We have the ability to do that, so it'd be really sweet if we could, actually make that happen and give a positive name for geocachers by saying, look at all the data we've created that the world can use.
And think about how much cooler it will be to have all of those trails finally mapped.
Yes.
So can we get OpenStreetMaps changed to Open Geocaching Maps?
Maybe.
Well, you could do a daughter project, basically, like with all these other sites, just have, the geocaching specific version of the maps. The builds, not the, not that we're making a fork, just, the different builds of the maps.
But to bring it all back together, if you're using OpenStreetMaps in your GPS, consider making a donation. Help OpenStreetMaps get the hardware they need to continue running, to give us these wonderful free maps to the geocaching community.
Well, and thanks again, Dave, for coming on and talking with us about it.
You're welcome. It's good to be here.
And also thanks to all of our patrons who make it possible to bring us these shows every week. And June 30th, mark your calendars because we haven't even announced it yet. We just got it set up right before the show. So June 30th is going to be our next patron hangout. That's going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. So join us live then and look for the information on the Patreon website if you are a patron.
Exactly. And if you are, thank you so much. Now, each and every week, I tell you how hard Daryl works to plan the upcoming shows. So, just to prove the point, next week, we're talking with Yorkie63 about the UK Mega 2015. July 2nd, we're talking with Static J about Ingress. July 9th, we're talking with Jennifer of Team AJK and Child of Adam on puzzles. You're not going to want to miss that episode. July 16th, we're talking with Land Monkey, K&L Caching, and Team Kiwi about hack spaces. Another good show. Daryl, they're all good shows, aren't they? I can't say that one is better than another. They're all going to be great shows.
Well, I'm sure everyone's going to have personal preferences, but I think hack spaces is really going to surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so. Now, July 23rd is going to be our randomized 35 show. And we're basically having every geocaching podcast host with us. That's going to be Michael of Cache and Release, Scott Burks of the Geocaching Podcast, and Mark of OBeep, if he can stay up that late.
Well, hopefully all of them are going to show up, and the ones who aren't listed are hopefully going to be here in spirit with us.
Oh.
But we've got a question for which you shouldn't have to do any searching of the internet to find the answer. For next week, when we hear about the next mega event in the UK, we'd like to know what was the last, if any, mega event that you attended. So for question 182, just email us that answer with your Geo nickname to geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com, and that has to be to us by June 24th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. If you'd like, let us know, some of the things that you like and dislike about attending megas. We're not likely to necessarily use it on next week's show, but those thoughts can certainly help us with questions for our guests next week and in the future. Plus, we can, use some of those topics in the future. So get that to us at geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com by June 24th with the title Question 182 and your name, the last mega event you attended, or if you have attended a mega event even, and maybe some of the things that you like and dislike about megas. If you do, you'll have a chance at a pack of Right in the Rain logs from coinsandpins.com. So good luck, and thanks again to coinsandpins.com.
I encourage you to check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes from this and all our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by calling 206-350-3647, by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com, or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming, so please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. The show is copyright 2015 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.
Guess we're the Cachemaniacs.